What do you think is the most important phase of your presentation? Well, it is the start. Within 2 minutes of the start of your presentation, your audience decides whether or not they think it's worthwhile listening to your presentation. So that means if you don't manage to capture them within this time, then things get complicated. Your audience won't listen as well, won't remember as much, and in that way the effect of your presentation is small. The opposite, fortunately, is also true. If you do manage to capture your audience within these first 2 minutes, then they listen better, they will be leaning in and wanting to learn more. And you will be able to enthuse your audience for your ideas, for your project approach or your product. But how do you do that? Well, the interesting thing is, when you look at good presentations, such as TED Talks, the speakers almost all make use of the same techniques to add suspense to their presentation. And the good part is that there are roughly 4 techniques, and during this video I will teach you these 4 techniques. Would you like to receive more presentation tips? Then please subscribe to my YouTube channel and don't forget to click on the notification bell. Okay, let's go! 4 techniques to capture your audience attention within 2 minutes. Or, in other words, 4 techniques to pull the bow. Well, the first technique is to introduce a problem. Because if you introduce a problem, you suggest that you have a solution. But you don't give the solution yet. And there you create suspense. Because your audience wants now to know, what is it? What is it? Just take a look at how Steve Jobs is using this problem technique at the introduction of the first iPhone.
And the problem is that they're not so smart and they're not so easy to use.
And the problem is that they're not so smart and that they're not so easy to use. And by introducing this problem, he suggests that he has the solution. If you have a relatively known problem, it helps to add something new to it. Something the audience didn't know yet, to raise their curiosity. Take a look at Sonia Shah talking about the problem of the disease malaria. A problem most of us are aware of. Look how she makes us curious by adding something new to it. Something we didn't know yet.
So, over the long course of human history, the infectious disease that's killed more humans than any other is malaria. This really makes no sense. We've known how to cure malaria since the 1600s.
What did she say that made us curious? Did you figure it out? Well, she introduces the problem of malaria being the deadliest infectious disease. That in itself is already interesting, of course. But it gets really interesting when she gives us new information. That there has been a medicine to cure malaria since the 1600s. The 1600s? That makes me think, huh? But how can that be? And that is building up suspense. Let's go to the second technique for building up suspense. Or in other words, how to pull the bow. That is by asking your audience a rhetorical question. So that is a question your audience should not answer out loud, but only in their minds. Just look at how Simon Sinek is using this technique in his famous TED Talk about the golden circle.
Why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different?
Why is it that they seem to have something different? Well, good question, Simon. Please tell me. He sparks curiosity even more by providing additional information. He asks the question, why is Apple so innovative? Okay, good question. And then he adds, they have the access to the same information as their competition. Which makes you think, yes, that's true. So tell me, please tell me. Pull the bow. Robert Dijkgraaf, who is a famous Dutch professor, also asks lots of questions at the start of his presentation. Watch how he starts his talk about the Big Bang and the existence of all. Ladies and gentlemen, the big questions. What are our origins? What do we consist of? How did it all become to be? What is our destination? And also, what don't we know? Yes, those questions have been asked endlessly. But the extraordinary thing is that we actually have known the scientific answers to these questions since a few years. The questions Robert Dijkgraaf asks are reasonably interesting. But it gets really interesting when he says we finally have the scientific answers to them. When I hear this, I think, huh? Did I miss the science section in all the newspapers? Please tell me I missed it. In other words, by asking rhetorical questions to your audience, you suggest you have the answers. But you don't give them yet. And there you create suspense. The third technique to spark your audience curiosity is to start with a tantalizing statement. Because if you make a statement, you suggest that you will prove it. But again, you don't do that yet. You just make a statement to pull the bow. Please look at this fragment of the TED Talk of Dan Pink about the surprising science of human motivation.
I spent the last couple of years looking at the science of human motivation, particularly the dynamics of extrinsic motivators and intrinsic motivators. And I'm telling you, it's not even close. If you look at the science, there is a mismatch between what science knows and what business does.
What makes this interesting is that he says business thinks people are motivated by reward and punishment, while science has long known that things are completely different. Not even close is what he says. So I want to know now, so what is it? Tell me. Let's look at another example of Simon Sinek, where he starts with a tantalizing statement.
As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else.
So, if I listen to this presentation, I learn something not many people know, and I could even take advantage of that? Well, you got my attention. The fourth and final technique to pull the bow and grab the attention of the audience is by making a promise. The technique always comes down to listen to this presentation, because after it you will immediately be able to do a better job at whatever. Let's look at the titles of some TED Talk presentations. And let's start with Alison Ledgerwood, and she states, a simple trick to improve positive thinking. So the promise is that it's a simple trick. Or this Tibetan teacher, Yongwei Mingyo Rinpoche, states, why meditation is easier than you think. Well, I just can't bring myself to meditate. So yes, please tell me. Next up is Liv Bourret. 3 lessons on decision making from a poker champion. So the promise is, she's the champ. So she knows. And 3 lessons are easy to understand. So yes, I'm all ears. In this last example, you will see how Anthony Metivier applies the promise technique very well.
How would you like to completely silence your mind? Now, I know you came here to have better thoughts, not no thoughts, right? But wouldn't it be nice to just shut them off on demand in a way that creates just complete being? Just perfect wellness on demand and in a way that lasts. I figured out how to do this, and I'll teach you the basics today.
He figured it out, and he's going to teach us today. So what did we learn in this video? Well, in short, the effectiveness of your presentation will increase drastically if you succeed in capturing your audience's full attention within the first 2 minutes of your presentation. And there are 4 techniques to do this. The first one is to start with a problem. This suggests you have the solution. The second technique is to start asking questions. This too suggests you have the answers. The third technique is to start with a tantalizing statement, because then your audience wants to know what's up with that. And the fourth and final technique is to start by making a promise. With this promise, you say to your audience, if you listen to this, you get something out of it immediately. If you want some help bringing these tips into practice in your own presentation, then check out the training offer on my website. For now, thanks for watching and good luck on your next presentation.